Before we begin, I would like to say that the first true scary story has been verified by Reddit. So, let's begin. My second year of college was a difficult year. I wish I could say that it was due to organic chemistry or boyfriend drama or anything other than what actually happened. I started out my year in a great dorm. I loved my hallmates, my room, and the fact that a dining hall was less than 100 feet away. Obviously, I spent a lot of time there, and I got to know the staff. I had worked in a restaurant for 2 years before going to school, and I can identify with the struggles that come with being a food service worker, especially because I was at a notoriously snobby school, so I sympathize with the staff for having to deal with rich kids and their entitled bullshit. Most of the staff were lovely people, but one, in particular, seemed to take a real interest in me. He was a young white man, not much older than myself, named Matt. He always went out of his way to talk to me and ask me questions about myself and how school was going. One evening, I was doing homework in the dining hall around closing hours. Matt sat with me and we chatted for a bit. He said he was off work and heading to his car to smoke a bowl before he went home, and he asked if I wanted to join. I had only smoked a few times before, but I enjoyed it, and he seemed harmless enough, so I agreed. I was still very much a sheltered child, and to me, he didn't seem like a bad guy, so he couldn't be. We lit up in his car in the parking lot behind the dining hall, and I got a glimpse of the real Matt. He ranted about how his ex-girlfriend had recently dumped him. He called her a bitch and a whore, and told me unnecessary details about their apparently kiki sex life. The virgin in me was incredibly uncomfortable, only made worse by the paranoia brought on by the weed. He also went on about how much he hated the students at my university, especially the girls, saying they treated him as less than human. I was completely speechless, and when I didn't respond, he tried to apologize for going off, saying I was different, and that he wanted to get to know me better. I remember blurting out that I needed to go, and I got the hell out of Dodge. He got out too, and shouted after me to come back, and I thought he might chase me, but he didn't, and I got back to my room safely. I avoided that dining hall like the plague for the next week, and I didn't see him again until the one night that still haunts me to this day. Around midnight, I was walking back to my dorm alone from a function at the Christian Center, which was only about 2 blocks away. I know walking by myself was stupid, but the buses weren't running, and I felt bad asking someone to walk with me because there were some steep inclines between the center and my dorm. I was walking alone in an empty residential street that was just around the corner from my dorm, when I noticed a black SUV that was creeping along behind me. It was going so slow that it was hard not to notice. At first, I tried not to panic, but it quickly clicked that it was the same car as Matt's. I started to run when it sped up ahead of me, and a man in a ski mask jumped out at me. I just knew it was Matt. From here, things happened very fast. I tried to run the other way, but he grabbed me from behind and was struggling to get my wrists in the handcuffs while simultaneously pulling me towards his car. I was screaming at the top of my lungs and fighting like hell. We fought each other for a few minutes like that before he dropped the handcuffs and I was able to slam my heel onto his foot. I think those two things, and my relentless struggling, shook his confidence, because he ran back to his car and sped off. Freaked out, I ran back to my dorm, constantly looking back to see if he was after me. Thankfully, he didn't follow, and I was able to call the police. I was very lucky that night, not only because I got away, but also because he was caught shortly after I called 911. He was arrested, and when the police searched his car, they found handcuffs, duct tape, and a knife. During interrogation, he confessed that he was bitter and depressed over his breakup and wanted to make someone feel the pain like he feels it. Nearly a year later, after a painful testimony from me, he was convicted to 40 years in prison with a 32-year suspension for abduction and intent to defile. Matt, let's never meet again. I'm 27, and this story takes place during my freshman year of high school. So I was about 14 at the time. School has never been a good experience for me. From preschool to college, it has just never been a positive experience. My freshman year of high school, though, was an all-time low. It is, by far, the worst year of my life to date. I was a pretty awkward kid. I was too thin and completely uncomfortable in my own skin. I had basically no true friends, and the guys, I was seemingly invisible. All of this made me an easy target. Within the first month of school, I was targeted by a pack of bullies. I wasn't just targeted by students either. I was also targeted by the teachers. Add that to problems I had with my father, and it wasn't a stretch to lead me to self-harm. By the winter break, I was being encouraged to kill myself. I hated myself, but fortunately, not enough to give in. I also didn't see that the other person that relentlessly targeted me was my own sister. My insecurities were played to and manipulated to make me feel as small and insignificant as possible. My sister loved to humiliate me as publicly as possible. There was also one guy in particular that took particular joy in targeting me. By the spring term, I was not only being harassed at school, but also by online classmates and at home by my family. This one particular guy, though, was a special kind of fucked up. He kept this diary, and on some of the pages he would cut himself and write in his own blood. He even carried it to school on a regular basis. This guy in particular was insistent that I kill myself. Towards the end of the year, when it became apparent that I wasn't going to kill myself, he began to threaten to kill me himself. By this point, it's the last few weeks of the school year, and I have a chat log of his threats. Finally having enough, I take the chat log to my guidance counselor, who quite literally laughs in my face and tells me we just don't like each other and nothing was going to happen. This isn't that many years after the Columbine shootings, and the terror is still kind of fresh, and yet she laughed at me. In that chat log, he specifically said on the last day of school he was going to bring a gun and shoot me, and the counselor laughed in my face. After that incident, I finally said something about it to my parents. And my mother went to the school and flipped her shit at everybody, including the teachers that were telling my classmates how worthless and stupid I was because I was always late and never did my work. Then she pulled me out of the school. She should have gotten a lawyer, but she doesn't think that way. Not long after my graduation, creepy dude that wrote in his own blood friend requested me on Facebook. Obviously, I declined. And about the same time I cut ties from my sister and haven't spoken to her in almost 10 years. Creepy jerk that wanted to kill me and shitty older sister, let's never meet again, ever. Before I start this next story, I just wanted to state that this is not from Let's Not Meet. The following story is from the Reddit category No Sleep. So, let's begin. The French have a phrase specifically for the idea. You know the one I'm talking about. At one point or another, we've all felt that glitch in the matrix. Whoa, deja vu. That's all well and good, but what I want to know is, what the hell do you call it when you've got a thought that sticks to you like gum on the bottom of a shoe? Nothing downright scary, just an idea that won't leave you be. Something that worms its way into the back of your brain and just sort of sits there, lying underneath all your day-to-day nonsense, ready to spring as soon as you make the mistake of relaxing. It's that whole "did I leave the stovetop on?" feeling. Do they have a word for it? I mean, they've got one for all the witty crap you should have said during an argument. So, they've gotta have one for not being able to remember if you left the garage door up or not. I've noticed that you tend to have these thoughts way more often if you live alone. It happens to me all the time, and I'll chalk it up to my own obliviousness. Yeah, sure, I probably left the light on in the kitchen. Whoops, did I forget to lock the front door again? I don't remember leaving the TV on before I left. Obviously, I have a hard time remembering little shit on my own. Never mind if I'm coming home drunk or tired as hell. Oh, and did you ever notice that these thoughts usually pop into your head when you're about a half a second from falling asleep? You're lying there, not quite awake, and suddenly you wonder how confident you are that your house won't burn down in the middle of the night. And you'll get up to check every time. Hell, I still do. I know good and goddamn well that stove is off. But something in me just won't take my own word for it. On a somewhat related note, is there a phrase for when you see something that drops a ball of lead into your gut? Or makes the hair on your arm stand up? Oh shit is the first phrase that comes to my mind, but I suppose it's personal preference. Some people call it the creeps, or the heebie-jeebies, or even the hoo-has. But none of these really have the zing that comes with a different language, you know? Thing is, I'm not talking about day-to-day stuff like almost getting T-boned in the intersection or having your cat jump at you from the dark. That shit just gets your heart racing. I'm talking about the stuff that makes you straight up uneasy, makes you question whether you're really alone or not. Besides, isn't a word like creepy pretty relative? Some people get the creeps when they see a spider skitter across the floor. But I knew a girl that would squeal when she saw one like the damn thing was a puppy. Anyway, out of all the little shit I forget, I do have one routine I try to stick to. Every morning when I get out of the shower, I leave the curtain open. I do forget from time to time, but I do my best to remember though. Because it lets the tub dry out a bit, makes it less mildewy, and gives me somewhere to spew later if the toilet's too small a target. I know I kinda stuck my foot in my mouth earlier by telling you I don't remember small details very well, But I was so damn tired when I walked through the door the other night that I could have started pissing on the closed toilet seat and wouldn't realize until it started dripping down onto my shoes. I obviously didn't notice the curtain right away. No, the first thing I noticed was the draft coming from the open window. A chill up my spine wouldn't do my aim any favors while trying to take a leak, so I went over to the window to close it, and that's when I first got that feeling. Did I leave the shower window open? It gets pretty toasty in that bathroom, especially considering I take my showers hotter than the devil's rectum. So it was possible I could have opened it. Still, I didn't think I would have left it that way. Winter was creeping up in my neck of the woods, and I wasn't fond of the idea of my toilet seat water turning to ice. The longer I stood there and kicked myself for not remembering something so simple, the more I became convinced there was no way I left that window open. Why would I have? Red flag number 1. I started to close the window and stared at my backyard for a moment, racking my brain for an explanation that wasn't terrifying. I just forgot, that's all. I forgot all the time. I told you that like a minute ago. Anyway, I stood there for a moment, staring out into my backyard. It was dark out there. The streetlight in the alley doesn't do much, but you can see them in the fresh snow. Red flag number 2. They were all mixed in with the hoof prints and the rabbit tracks. Footprints. Barefooted, human footprints. They started from the alleyway and trailed right up to my window. I felt my eyes, that had been heavy a minute ago, open wide. I was suddenly aware of how heavy my breathing was. Or had I been holding my breath? That feeling, whatever you call it, was with me in full swing now as I struggled to remember. Did I close the shower curtain that morning? I turned to look at my shower curtain, and every Alfred Hitchcock, John Carpenter, and Wes Craven movie flashed in my mind all at once. The closed curtain was fluttering silently in the window's breeze. I inched the window the rest of the way shut, and the breeze stopped. The curtains continued to move. I stood there for a long time, debating, weighing my options. I thought about grabbing my phone and hustling ass out there. I thought about grabbing a pair of shears from the counter and reenacting the scene from Psycho. I thought a million things I could have done. But instead, without me realizing it, my hand slowly began to inch out toward the curtain. It was happening before I could stop myself, and I can't explain why. It felt like I was watching a movie of my own life. My heart hammered in my chest, in my ears. Shit, I'm pretty sure even my fingers were pulsing. But that was probably just my hands shaking. When my fingertips were only inches from the fabric, the voice in my head started screaming, "What are you doing, you fucking idiot? Get out of there. Haven't you ever watched a horror movie in your goddamn life? Did someone just clear their throat?" Was it me? Just as if my fingertips brushed the curtain, I heard something that restored the movement in my legs in a big fucking hurry. From behind the curtain, there came a sneeze. One last thing about these heebie-jeebies or hoo-haws or whatever. There's no way you can know how you'll react to them. Some people, like yours truly, just freeze up. They can't move or say a damn word. They just stand there looking like a deer in the headlights. Something in the flight part of their fight or flight response is busted. It's pretty embarrassing to have to include myself in that category. Those people are always the first to go in a horror flick. Other people try to fight that feeling away. They curse and spit and puff their chest out, hoping they can be scarier than whatever it is that's about to wreck their day. And then there's people, smart people, who get the hell out. No questions asked. No, "Hello, is someone there?" No reaching for the curtain. They're fucking gone, man. Despite my initial stupidity, I promise you, no matter how tired and potentially drunk I might have been, I never moved that fast in my life. Oh shit was definitely the proper phrase then. As soon as I hit my front yard, I had 911 on the line. A few officers had been on patrol in my area, so they showed up pretty quickly. Grinning at my slurred and panicked report of someone in my bathtub, after a lot of yelling and pleading, I convinced them to search my house top and bottom. Every closet, crawlspace, and corner had a flashlight shown on it. Do I need to tell you that they didn't find anything? When I brought them into my backyard, someone or something had trudged through the footprints and erased any sign of them being there. The cops decided they had humored me enough and told me to call back if my shower or any other parts of my house had sneezed again. They left me with a shit-eating grin and a pat on the back. They thought I was just another drunk. I didn't want to go back inside, but I couldn't afford a motel room. My family lives in another town, and I've fallen a little short on the whole friends bit. Besides, whoever was in my bathroom had clearly booked it when the police showed up. So I settled for locking literally every way into the house and being scared shitless. If I planned on sleeping after this, I was gonna need some help. When I reached into the fridge for a beer, my hands were still shaking. Well, that's strange, I thought to myself. I could have sworn I had 2 left. Thanks for watching another True Scary Stories from Reddit. If you liked, don't forget to leave a subscribe for even more dark stories. Have a great day, everyone, and as always, stay safe.